Hello, everyone. I'm Francine Sayok with the International Seed Federation. Welcome to all, and thank you for joining us on this live virtual roundtable, which follows the series of virtual events we've been doing this year on a variety of important topics. Today, we are very excited to have 6 experts together in one conversation about the International Year of Plant Health. As you know, 2020 has been declared by the United Nations as the International Year of Plant Health. The year has been unusual, to say the least, because of the pandemic, which now affects all aspects of modern life. Nonetheless, the topic of plant health continues to be important, if not even more crucial today. Incidentally, on Friday, October 16, we are also celebrating World Food Day, which is again a reminder for all of us that without healthy plants, there will be no food. Apart from talking about the importance of plant health, we are taking the discussion further today by talking about the actions that are taking place within the various ISF committees and sections which support different aspects of plant health. I'm sure this will be a very informative discussion, so please stay tuned, and if you have any questions, you can send them in the comments. So let's get to it. Leading this discussion is my very energetic colleague and ISF Food Health Manager, Rose Souza Richards, who I have the pleasure to introduce. Rose, please, the floor is all yours.
Thank you so much, Francine. It is a pleasure to be the moderator of this event live today. And please, as Francine said, if you have any comments from the audience, please put on the comment section. And if time permits, we'll be able to answer some of your questions. I would like to start this very interesting virtual roundtable by asking that the panelists please introduce themselves. So I would like to start with you, Mer, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Did you say, yep, okay. My name is Merel LANGENS, working for BASF Vegetable Seeds as Global Manager of Industry Affairs. And a large part of my work is devoted to phytosanitary issues, so having a lot to do with seed health and all that is around that. Thank you.
Frank? I believe you're mute, Frank.
I think this works better. So my name is Frank CLAESSENS. I'm representing here today the Seed Health Group of ISF. I'm a member of the group since 2013, and in the last 2 years, I'm chairing that group. I'm having a background in botany and plant science, and I'm working today for BASF Vegetable Seeds as Vice President of Operations, and I'm based in the Netherlands.
Valérie?
Hello, everybody. I'm Valérie GRIMAULT. I work in GEVES in France. It's an official laboratory, a reference laboratory for seed health testing, and also an examination office for resistance testing. I'm a phytopathologist. And before this official laboratory, I've been working during 9 years in a seed company.
Michael?
Yes, hi Rose. Hi everyone. My name is Michael Leader. I'm the chair of the ISS Phyto-Sanitary Committee. I've been in that position since June 2019, before the pandemic, and so we haven't really had a chance to get together really face-to-face as yet, but I hope to do that soon. I also work for Bayer here. I head up their seed regulatory affairs for the Asia region, based in Melbourne in Australia right now.
Marco?
Hello, everyone, and my name is Mirko Montori. I'm working as a project officer for the International Plant Protection Convention, or IPPC Secretariat, based at FAO in Rome. I joined the IPPC in 2012, and since then I've been working specifically on governance and communication issues. My background is actually in international relations, diplomacy, and management, so I'm also working towards establishing new partnerships with relevant stakeholders. So thank you very much for this invitation.
That's great. Thank you so much, everybody, for the introduction. And so I would like to just dive in. And as my colleague Francine mentioned, that the United Nations declared 2020 as the year of the International Year of Plant Health. So I would like to start with you, Mirko, and go through with Michael, Valérie, Frank, and Merel, why plant health is important, that we needed the United Nations to declare 2020 as the International Year for Plant Health. And why do you think, Mirko, coming from the FAO IPPC, why should people be concerned about plant health?
Thanks, Rose, for raising this question. I think we basically tend to forget it, but plants are life. So plants provide us, they are basically the main source of the food we eat and also that of the animals we eat, by the way. And they are also providing the oxygen we need to breathe, as well as they are sources of medicine and shelter, as well as a part of the cultural and traditional heritage of many populations. So, and then secondly, and something that we tend to forget even more, plants also, like humans, get sick. So more and more we see the occurrence and impact of pests and diseases on the world's plant resources. Therefore, the United Nations General Assembly back in 2018 decided to proclaim 2020 the International Year of Plant Health, with the main objective to increase the awareness of the public and also decision makers of the importance of plant health, specifically to the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, particularly different of their SDGs. But to start with, to highlight the relation of plant health with food security, so to achieve zero hunger, to protect the environment and biodiversity, and also to facilitate safe trade. Now, the proclamation of the IYPH itself marks a very important moment and success for the global plant health community. In fact, it is somehow the first time that the issue of plant health is brought to such a wide audience at the global level across policymakers, but also citizens. So, obviously, as you mentioned, the COVID-19 crisis has somehow redirected some of the public attention towards human health issues or other economic and social aspects of the crisis. However, plant health remains high on the agenda and an important matter to deal with in different ways. So much needs to be done, actually, and I think we can mention specifically the need to strengthen all plant health institutions at all levels, starting with the national to the regional and global levels. But also we need to ensure that they have the right phytosanitary capacity and resources to operate in this increasingly challenging environment. And we need to trigger also collaboration across the various groups of stakeholders, including the academia and the private sector in plant health. We also aim at promoting more the knowledge sharing and the partnerships, specifically on research. And finally, we need to ensure the recognition of the importance by the citizens. We mentioned in the beginning that plants are life, so certainly this is a global concern that citizens should be taken into account. Thank you.
Michael?
Thanks, Rose. I mean, there's not much more that we can really add there to the FAO input, but I will just remind that it's spot on that, healthy plants are essential for life. And I think that that's why, the theme of the International Year of Plant Health is protecting plants, protecting life. And the reason the seed industry is so interested in this is that seed is the start of all plants. And so in order to get the seed to farmers, for them to grow the food that's necessary, we need to be we need to be aware that we need to start with healthy seed. So we want to be part of the discussions and part of this theme. I think we're very happy that it's been extended, for a little bit further so that we can continue to participate and have activities and raise awareness through this important year. If the COVID-19 pandemic has taught us anything, is that all the increased all the increased trade, the increased movement of people around the world can easily spread disease. And as we said, this is not just about humans, but can also happen in plants as well. And we need to take really good care of that. And seed is the start of all of that.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you so much, Michael. Valérie would like to add to it?
Yeah, well, plant health is very important, and it's important also to have 1 year where we really can talk about plant health. And for me, what is important is that we need to feed people, and the number of people in the world is increasing, and in the future maybe we are going to have to feed also more people. And plant health for me is very linked to the health of animals, health of humans, and also to the environment. It's this concept of one health, one unique health for all plants, animals, environment, and humans. And plant pests can have a consequence on the human health, because, like, for example, with mycotoxins, which cause some neurological disorders, when there are some pests, we need some treatments, and they can have some impact on the environment. And when we want also to decrease the treatments, we can see some pests which were not a problem coming much more important, like this year, for example, with the beet aphids, which increased in France, for example. And for me, it's very important to really have this plant health in the middle of all this human, animal, and environmental health.
You're on mute, Frank.
So what I would like to add to that is that indeed, like we all say, plant health is very important. Healthy plants are, let's say, important for our safe food supply, because that's a starting point. And as also Michael already said, it starts with emerging a seed. And what we have to realize across the seed industry is that it's really a global business. So many seeds are moving around the world. And the starting point of good plant health is starting with clean seed, with healthy seed. And we have to realize that also in COVID-19, we saw that the infrastructure across the world, how we move seeds also around the world, is also bringing risk with it when you move pests which could be on there. So a clean start is important to secure a good plant health later on. And finally, to feed the world, we know the challenges in the coming decades. So from that perspective, a good plant health is absolutely very necessary.
Thank you, Frank.
Yes, maybe just to add a little to what already was said, and that I completely agree to. I was thinking, if you see the impressive numbers that like 80% of our food depends on plants, and that 20 to 40% of this gets destroyed by pests and diseases, then yeah, those numbers cannot lead to other discussions or other conclusions than that it's very worthwhile to pay attention to plant health. And I think maybe nowadays, many people living in urbanized situation, maybe people don't realize anymore so clearly what efforts are needed to maintain a healthy crop and to grow a healthy crop, not only with healthy starting material, but also to grow the crop from seed to the crop takes a huge effort. And I think it's very worthwhile to pay closer attention to that for a full year.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Thank you so much, Merel, for highlighting exactly this, the fact that how much of the destruction caused by pests and disease happened during the production. And this is why it is so important that we keep talking about plant health. It is important for all industries, all the actors in relation to the food sector. And of course, it is important for us as members of the seed industry. I would like to take this discussion a little bit, and it started by the activities that happen inside the different committees and groups that make the International Seed Federation. So I would like to start with you, Frank. If you could talk a little bit about what is the impact of plant health on the activities of the seed health group, and of course, which some other activities related to the International Year of Plant Health has the seed health group been taking part? The floor is yours.
Thank you, Rose. Yes, let's start with the point where we just also mentioned. If you talk about plant health, you have to start with clean and healthy seeds. And for a long time, the seed industry is highly engaged in delivering healthy seeds to our customers. That's the ultimate goal. But when we produce and when we multiply the seeds for our growers, we are highly dependent of climate conditions to where we grow these seeds across the world. So, like also addressed by others, plants can also get, let's say, can be affected by pests during the seed production cycle. So what we try to do anyhow is already in a very early stage to sanitize the fields in the right way to avoid that the plants also in the field will be affected by diseases, and to avoid that also the seeds finally that we harvest will be affected by that. But we have to realize that seeds can be a pathway for pests. And in the activities of the seed health group, we actually focus on two things. The first thing is that we focus on what we call the regulated pest list. And the regulated pest list is a list that describes a lot of regulated pests across the world by different countries. And in our case, it is very important to understand what pests do really matter, in the sense that what pests can really be transferred by the seed. Because the second activity that we are taking care for is developing seed health test methods as a reference method to identify if a seed is infected with a disease or not. And what we would like to do in the seed health group is to focus especially in the test method development, which is happening in the International Seed Health Initiative, what we call ISHI, is that we want to focus preferably on the development of those tests where it is really relevant from a biological perspective to focus on that specific pest. Assume there would be pest regulated where seed is not proven to be a pathway, then that will cause quite some research pressure to develop tests that actually don't make sense. We really have to focus on those pests that can be transferred by the seed. So in the seed health group, we want to focus on one hand to identify which pests are really relevant, which can be where a seed a pathway, and for those we want to develop a test method to identify if the seed is really present on the seeds. And we want to use that information, that knowledge, how we collaborate together across the world with many scientists from different companies and labs. We want to share that information, of course, with all the regulators from the different national plant protection organizations, to share the knowledge, to share the experiences, and together find our way in how we can best organize the global movement of seeds. But yeah, the regulation is one important aspect, and the other side is then for those pathogens that are really relevant, where the biological relevance is clear, that we then also focus on those pests to develop test methods to identify them. I would say those are the two most important parts that relate immediately to plant health, because at the end we want to ensure that the seeds we move across the world are free from diseases.
That's great. Thank you, Frank. So Merel, as the chair of the Systems Approach Working Group, could you please share with us the importance of plant health for the activities of the working group that you're currently sharing under the International Seed Federation? And also if there is any extra activities that your working group is taking part for. Please, yes. The floor is yours.
Yes. Thank you, Rose, and thank you for mentioning that what I had forgotten, that I'm here actually indeed as a chair of the working group on systems approach in ISF. And yeah, that working group is working on harmonization and simplification of the seed trade, of the global seed trade. As was already mentioned by other people, the trade of seed is essential for especially for vegetable seeds. Seeds are grown in different places than where the processing takes place or when the sales takes place. And so we're very dependent of import and export of seedlets. And the current issue, which is building up, let's say, in the past years, is that this import and export of seeds is becoming more and more complicated. There's more and more countries that have very specific regulations for import, because of course every country wants to protect the country from spread and introduction of new pests. And the tendency is that countries make new regulations, and the problem is that these regulations are not harmonized worldwide. So when seed lots, let's say, are produced in country 1 and they have to be shipped to country 2 for processing, and then to country 3, 4, 5 to 20 for sales, all the requirements of all the different countries have to be fulfilled. And that makes the import of or the movement of seed extremely complicated. And that makes it even difficult to provide all the growers in the different countries with high quality seeds, because that's what is needed for the growers in all these different countries. What we're trying to do in the working group systems approach is to set up a system that is based on certification of seed companies. And that's quite a new way of thinking for in the phytosanitary world. And the idea is that as a seed company, you could become certified based on your practices, based on your hygiene protocols, based on your whole chain of activities in the seed production pathway, let's say. And seeds that are produced by seed companies that are certified, they are recognized as, let's say, systems approach seeds. And the idea is that these seeds can move easily between countries that recognize the systems approach. Of course, such a system we cannot set up as industry. We need the national plant protection organizations, we need the authorities, the global authorities, for that to make this happen. And that's why we've engaged in supporting proposals that have been done in IPPC to work out how systems approach could be implemented by MPPOs in the different countries. And well, we're very positive to hear that the proposal that was submitted last year has received a high priority in the CPM meeting. And well, the process is now ongoing to work out the proposal. And then the next step will be to set up an expert group with MPPO members to work out, okay, how can we make systems approach work worldwide. And I think by working on simplification of the import and export system, we really contribute to providing the farmers with the high quality and healthy seeds that are needed to grow the crops in the end.
No, that's absolutely fantastic. And thank you so much for highlighting the work that we're doing with the systems approach working group. Valérie, for you as the chair of the disease-resistant technology group, can you tell us the importance of plant health for the activities of your group, please?
Yes, thank you, Rose. We have spoken about starting with healthy seed, but also planting resistant varieties is really a way to achieve good yields, to also be able to grow a plant in an infected area, for example, an area infected by a pest, and also to reduce the need to have some treatments. So in the disease resistance testing working group, we are working in harmonizing the names and the codes of the different pests, also defining the terms of resistance, susceptibility, intermediate resistance, so that in the world we all speak the same language and we all understand each other when we say that a variety is resistant or is susceptible to a pest. And we also have some different research projects where we define some differential sets, which is something which will be able to define what races of pests are present in the different growing areas. And because it's really important when we define a resistance to know to what pest, to what race of pest the variety will be resistant to. And to declare a resistance, it needs to be really linked to the reality of the production areas. So that's what we are doing in several research projects where we do some epidemiological study. We try to know what pests are present where and to define what are the resistances to these different pests. And we publish on the website all the differential sets with relevant isolates and resistances.
That's great. Thank you so much, Valérie. And let's hear from Michael Leader, which is the chair of the Phyto-Sanitary Committee.
Look, thanks a lot, Rose. I think we've heard from the other speakers that seed, healthy seed, we understand is very important, to lead to healthy lives, to get enough feed for the world and the increasing population, it's going to be even more important. I think something that we've found out, though, is that a lot of the time we agree with that, and that governments and countries have the right to try and protect their particular biodiversity and to ensure healthy seed. But a lot of the time, we find that indeed maybe a lot of the regulated pests that are on seed currently should not be there, and seed is not a pathway, and that might be some of the work that, in fact, through Frank's group that has conducted through an ISF pest list, about 80% of currently regulated pests on a lot of commodities, seed is not a pathway, and so ensuring healthy seed is really important, but making sure that healthy seed gets to farmers when they need it is also vitally important. And as we go through climate change and other aspects, the ability to bring in other germplasm to help your biodiversity address new pests and disease challenges in your country is going to be super important as well. So the Phytosanitary Committee at ISF really looks to educate governments as well as national seed associations. We're composed of representatives from various national seed associations around the globe. We try to share our what's happening in those countries, and then try to educate and provide information on where seed is an issue for a pest, where it isn't. We try also to provide a lot of information on seed movement. I think the other speakers have touched on this, but the reality of seed movement, the reality of seed production practices is a lot different than if you're just bringing in a fruit from one country to another. And I think that reality needs to really get to national plant protection organizations as well. So I think one of our roles is to educate, and indeed recently there has been a global standard specifically for seed for sowing and from seed movement that has come from the International Plant Protection Convention that makes it clear that there are certain aspects you need to think about when it comes to seed. We've done a training manual on that piece for national seed associations. So education is really important. But we also look to partner with governments in regions to look at harmonizing the kind of requirements that are there. We can't, even when you have only 80% that shouldn't be regulated, the other 20% may also still have different test protocols in different countries. We try to understand what that is and the reality and the impacts this could have for seed trade and for farmers having the seed when they need it. So we try to partner with regional activities and harmonization activities that are going on. And I think the third one is looking for easier ways to make sure that governments can get the recognition and the confidence they need in seed, but getting those pests addressed, but in a either through a flexible way, but also using the Phyto-Sanitary certificates and technology now to make that seed movement and certification easier. So there's a lot of things that we're trying to do all at once through that committee, but I think we're certainly making some good headway. Right.
That's great. Thank you so much. And it's really good that all of you had given this overview perspective of what is happening across all the different groups and sections inside the ISF. Before I move to you, Marco, if you allow me, there is a question from Ralph Lopian to Merel, and it's about systems approach. And his question is, who is going to approve the systems approach scheme for certain seed species? And who is going to authorize this company to produce according to a systems approach? Mary, if you could give a reply in a short period of time, that would be great.
Yes. Thank you, Rose. That's indeed a very good question, and something that we've been thinking about a lot in the working group. Our proposal is that this approval will be done on a national level, so by the National Plant Protection Organization. And of course, the challenge will be, if you have a national approval, how do you get global harmonization? And that will be something for discussion and quite a challenge, because the IPPC is based on bilateral agreements, and we would like to end up with a system that is more or less a multilateral accepted system. So what we're thinking is that by making bilateral agreements, trying to make them as harmonized as possible, that will lead to a somewhat, basically to a more or less multilateral accepted system. Because that in the end, we would like that the certification by a national plant protection organization in one country is accepted by other countries as well. And yeah, this will be a challenge, but we think there's possibilities to make it happen.
That's great. Thank you so much. So, Marco, can you tell us which kind of activities are you being involved, or the FAO is being involved in terms of the International Year of Plant Health? Can you give us an update of the latest activities that you have been involved?
Sure. Thank you, Rose. Well, despite the COVID-19 pandemic and the postponement of many of the global activities for the International Year, 2020 it has been and is being a very rich year in terms of the initiatives relating to plant health. First of all, we have hundreds of events that have turned into virtual events. This is one of them that basically highlight the importance of plant health and the IYPH in general. So we have currently recorded over 450 events taking place worldwide across all of the world's regions. Of course, we are also working a lot with relevant partners, including national and regional plant protection organizations, partner organizations ranging from IGOs to NGOs to the private sector, in order to undertake joint initiatives of different sorts. So let me highlight some of them. First of all, we are engaged in communication. Being a kind of advocacy initiative, communicating is extremely important. So we have developed a website under FAO.org that is kind of the repository for all the information relating to the key messages. We do have a section for events. We have a section for the communications toolkit. So we produce, in this regard, a series of publications, key messages for social media, as well as certain campaigns. So among the campaigns, we launched a photo competition that is a global one, as well as an art and drawing competition for children. So we try to actually target not only the usual suspects, so we do have materials and videos for different ranges of stakeholders, but also the younger ones. We did produce in this regard an activity book for children that we are trying to promote across schools in different countries and also globally. We have this art and drawing competition, again, for children and teachers. And we also produce several materials that fit for different purposes on social media. Now, it seems like many years ago that we had our launch event here at FAO headquarters in Rome with the participation of our Director General, several ministers, and other authorities. Most of the activities have forcibly turned into virtual ones. However, we are still planning for 2 important events that are taking place actually next year, as some of these key events have been postponed. So the first event is the 15th session of the Commission on Phytosanitary Measures, which will also include a ministerial segment. So it will be an important occasion to reflect on the future priorities of plant health at the global level. We also will have the first International Plant Health Conference organized jointly by FAO and the government of Finland, that we still hope could take place face-to-face, but it is currently planned for the end of June 2021. And of course, we're going to have a closing event, and we're working towards the legacy of the year. And allow me to mention briefly just 2 initiatives in this regard, which are the undertaking of a global study on the impacts of climate change on plant health. That is going to be a very important topic for the years to come. And secondly, the proclamation of an International Day of Plant Health, which is expected to be a sort of legacy in terms of advocacy initiatives that can take place on a regular basis from now on. Now, very recently, the FAO Committee on Agriculture has endorsed this proposal, and we expect that the rest of the governing bodies of FAO, as well as the UN General Assembly, also do favor this initiative to be proclaimed starting from 2022. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mirko, and thank you for mentioning about the International Day of Plant Health, which is an initiative that the International Seed Federation fully support. And our Secretary General, Michael Keller, has sent a letter in full support of this initiative and will be seen as a legacy for the International Year of Plant Health. So let's hope that will be fully approved, and then we can have this going forward, which I assume will be from next year onward. We'll have an International Day for Plant Health. So thank you so much for all of this. And I would like to just think a little bit more like maybe strategic, and think what each one of you think that would be the most important emergent issue related to plant health that can happen in the next 2 to 5 years. And I would like to start this by talking to our chair to the Phyto-Sanitary Committee, Michael Leader, and then I would like to move on to Valérie and Frank and Merel, and then Mark, if it's okay, you do a wrap-up. Michael, the floor is yours.
Wow. Okay. Thank you, Rose. I think if you're asking what some of the biggest challenges for plant health are going to be in the next few years, I think, it has to be climate change and the change in climates that are happening around the world. Pests are moving. Diseases are moving, and diseases are going to show up and establish in places where they haven't previously, and how the world reacts to that, but still ensure that we can continue feeding the world as the population grows is going to be fundamentally important to sustainability and economic, and population stability as well. So we really got to think of a way of addressing the pest risks, but still ensuring that seed is getting to farmers, and how do we have that checks and balances there. I do believe that starting with seed and thinking about that and working backwards is probably the best way to address this, and really there needs to be a view of really how can we safely move seed. I think the work of the Seed Health Group in providing some technical expertise on how to test and identify some of these pathogens, the systems approach concept that we're working on through Merel's group, some of the disease resistance pieces we've heard on from Valérie, and then that education piece and partnering that we can do through the Phytosanitary Committee, and easier ways to move seed through the technological aspects that have been set up through the International Plant Protection Convention will really help here. Coming out of COVID-19 as well, we know there's going to be more trade. There's going to be more people wanting to move and get out of their houses and move around the world, bringing with them again plants and diseases as well. So this is only going to be exacerbated, I think, over the next few years. So it's a watch out, but I think this has been a good wake-up call, I guess, to try and bring all of these initiatives together and go forward as one to make sure we address this in the correct way.
That's great. Thank you so much, Michael. Valérie?
Yeah, like Michael, I think that some emerging issues will be linked certainly with climate changes. It's very difficult to anticipate an emerging. But yeah, we already see that some pests which were more to the south are going a little more to the north, and we have to really be in close link in production areas and really do some epidemiological surveys and diagnostic to see what is coming and be prepared to have some answers. Something which could also emerge is with also decrease of phytochemical treatments. And like for beet, where we saw all the aphids coming and transmitting some viruses to the beet productions. And that's where I think also resistant varieties and breeding for resistance is very important to have some answers to these emerging diseases.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much, Valérie, for input. Frank, would you like to give your view coming from the Seed Health Group, please?
Yes, of course. Yeah, in addition to what Michael just said, I think he gave a nice summary that if you looked if we have to manage the food supply in the nearby future, we also have to secure that we can continue to move seeds across the world. And as I explained before, the CETA group is looking to the two aspects, the regulated pest list on one hand, and the other side on test method development. But if you first look to the emerging issue that I foresee on the regulated pest list is that we should really be careful not to put all our efforts and time and energy and resources on let's say, on the pest where seed is not proven to be the pathway. If we can, based on literature and academic studies, we can prove that we focus on those pests that are really regulated, where we know that seed can be the pathway. That would be already helping us in really bringing focus to where we should put our resources on. In the second part, if you then identify which pest is really relevant, then you also can focus with the scientist group on developing the desired test method. And what we see happening there in the last years is that the techniques, the new techniques, the PCR techniques we use are more and more often used. And that's very good because it is fast and also much more sensitive. On the other hand, we have to find a balance there in first of all, how we use these techniques. We do believe that they should be used as a pre-screen. If you talk about PCR, where you can really see quickly is something infected or not infected. But what is very crucial, and that's really what I see as an emerging issue for the future, is that we also can prove and confirm that when we see a positive, that is a true positive, that we really talk about a viable pest being present on the seed. And that also brings us to sensitivity of the new technologies that we are currently using. And I think it's very important that we all understand what these techniques can bring, but also how to use them in the best possible way. And also looking, if you talk about sensitivity, to your biological relevance. It's for sure that the complexity of import and export regulations is increasing. And especially when we have to add technology to prove if seed is free or not free from certain pests, it's important that we understand what we do and that we together in the industry, and of course with all the stakeholders related to seed movement, that we come to conclusion what is the best way forward to continue a movement of seed across the world and not block our shipments because we might not follow the techniques in the best possible way.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much for highlighting this specific point, Frank. And it's exactly as it. This is what the Regulated Pest List Initiative brings, all this extra information, this scientific information in terms of if a particular pest it is seed transmitted or not. And this is something that we wanted to carry on and bring this information across all the different stakeholders that include NPPOs as well. Merel, if you could say from your side, what would be the challenges or the emerging risks related to plant health coming from you as a chair of the Systems Approach Group?
Yeah, thank you, Rose. Yeah, I think, and the comment I would like to make is a bit connected to what was said before, because I think we can expect a new emerging disease with the climate change, and then the question for me is what we have to pay attention to is how we react to such an emergency. And nowadays, the trend is to use, like Frank says, to use molecular techniques to detect if something is, if a pathogen is present. And you also see that most people nowadays, most phytopathologists, have trainings in the field of molecular biology, especially. There's a strong tendency to focus only on molecular methods. And even though these are great methods and can be a great help, I think we should not forget in the education to pay attention to this green pathology, so that we really understand what is this pest doing, what's the epidemiology, how does the pest move, and only if we have a good understanding of that, and if that's taken, if that's a good part of the education, then you can take decisions about the right measures and the right risk mitigation measures. So my call would be for to pay attention to training in the field of green pathology in the coming years.
That's great. Thank you so much, Merel. So, Marco, can you give us your point of view? You're coming from the IPPC and from the FAO, and based on all the events and everything that has been highlighted as a result of the International Year of Plant Health, what do you see that would be the next challenge that we can foresee for the plant health?
Thank you, Rose. That's a $1 billion question. There's so many challenges to plant health, but I'll try to summarize by making reference to the IPPC strategic framework for the next decade. In that, we IPPC contracting parties actually identified 8 key areas for development. And among them, let me share 3, one of which has certainly already been touched upon, which is climate change impacts on plant health. So in this regard, as I mentioned, one first step is the development of scientific evidence at the global level on the impacts that changing climate has on pest epidemiology, distribution, impacts, etc. So it will be extremely important to drive certain policy conclusions from such a study and ensure that countries that participate in the IPPC process become aware of such consequences and take relevant actions. So that's my first suggested priority. We also have, of course, the need to counter what we discussed before, which is the increasing risks of spreading pests and diseases to new areas due to various factors, including international travel and trade. Now, we all know how the SPS agreement of the WTO highlights the importance of allowing safe trade across countries of agricultural products, including plant products. And this has to come with a balance of the need to trade with the need for a country to protect its own resources from pests and diseases, be it animal-related or human-related or even plant health-related. So I think that in this regard, it will be necessary to strengthen more and more national phytosanitary systems. And one way to do that is to strengthen the so-called pest outbreak and alert systems at the regional and possibly global level. Now we have some good examples of such important information exchange activity, for example, in Latin America with OIRSA, which is one of the 10 regional plant protection organizations that have set up a very successful system that detects and provides early warning for the introduction and spread of new pests into the countries affected. So yeah, I think that strengthening those alert systems will become more and more important in order to counter the effects of those pests and diseases. And finally, just a word on the importance of speeding up and also facilitate effective yet safe trade. We've talked about phytosanitary certification, certainly the IPPC ePhyto solution, which implements ISPM 12 on the on phytosanitary certification, and specifically via electronic means, is something that the global community has shown an interest in investing in, and certainly should be something that more and more is looked at as a reference point for ensuring safe trade of plants and their products. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much. And I believe that we are pressed for time. So I just would like to say thank you to everybody, to Merkel, to Michael, so to Michael Leader, to Merel, to Frank Larsen, to Valerie. I would like to say thank you so much. That all the expertise, all the information that you guys have provided today, and I hope that we have highlighted enough to everybody that listen the importance of plant health, all the activities that you guys are taking every day under the umbrella of the International Seed Federation, and of course the FAO and IPPC. And so I would love to carry on and discussing more, maybe another hour, another 2 hours, carry on talking about plant health and how important it is and how we all play a part on to be able to guarantee food to everybody. But unfortunately, the time is getting pushed to us. I would like to say thank you to all the people who sent the questions. My apology that we could not answer to all of them, but I think that there has been an incredible discussion, and I'm looking forward to catch up with you guys again, maybe on another opportunity that we can talk more about plant health. But for now, I would like to send all the thanks from the International Seed Federation to all of you, and thank you so much for the work that you guys doing every day. Is very much appreciated. Thank you so much, and thank you for everybody who watched us today. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.